What's up everyone, this is Alex Rome from AlexRomeSound.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make 3 sounds that every producer should know how to make. They are a pad sound, a bendy bass line, and the sound of big brass stabs. Every producer should know how to make those sounds, and I get plenty of questions on how to do just those 3 sounds. What we're going to do is we're going to go into a project. The project that contains the sounds that I'm going to show you how to make is the project that I used in yesterday's video, making a euphoric beat from Mr. Suicide Chief. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. It's a really awesome video. But as usual, every time I make a beat and I don't show any of the sound design, I get plenty of questions on how to make the certain sounds, and that's what gave me the idea for this video. I want to give a quick shout out to Reese Reetmere and Danny Johnson, my man Danny Johnson. You guys have been killing it in the comment sections lately, really pumping me up and keep me going, doing this every single day for you guys. So thanks so much for commenting your thoughts. I appreciate it so much. Let's get into the video. Alright, so here's the pad. And I know it might sound simple, but there's a couple elements of that pad that is not obvious, and so a little explanation will do good with that one. And then we have the other sounds here, the brass stab and the bendy bass. I'm just going to play this whole chorus so you get an idea of what you're going to learn how to make today. Right there. So those brass stabs coupled with that bendy bass, I'm going to show you how you can get those sounds to sound big and powerful just like that. So alone the brass sounds like this, and then the bass line sounds like this. So plenty of people ask me how to do that bend, so we're going to get to that. So first off, I want to show you how to make this pad, because I think one of the easiest parts about all the music I've been making lately is being able to open up a synth and just whip up that simple little pad and start making pretty much anything. And this pad will work well in R&B and hip-hop songs, pop music, pop electronic, and electronic music as well. So this is a very versatile pad. Let's go ahead and start up a new channel and open up a synth of choice. We're going to use Alchemy today because it's a free synth and not everybody has third-party plugins like XFER Serum or Sylenth. However, Serum and Sylenth will make this pad, if not better. So first thing you want to do in any synthesizer is go to File and then Initialize Preset, and this will start you off with a blank slate. And then what you want to do is you want to go to a stronger filtering, and any sort of low pass filter with the highest number will be the strongest filter. I'm not going to do that high. I want to do one of these 24 decibel per octave filter. And then you come over to one of your oscillators. We're only going to use one oscillator for this one, and we're going to use a saw wave. And then the next step would obviously be to write your chords, so you have some sort of slate to start writing, or some sort of slate to start sound designing. My bad, didn't mean to say that. So that's going to be our default sound in Alchemy. And now any synthesizer will make this sound. What you want to do is find out where your unison is and your detune knob is. So in Alchemy, our unison knob would be right here. I like to stuff those voices. And I'm going to detune these to almost half, the halfway point. To give you an idea, in Sylenth, your unison would be right here and your detune knob right there. And in XFER Serum, your unison would be right here and your detune right there. So here's what our pads sound like. Now we need to use the envelope to kind of shorten them up, put a lot of reverb on, and slap a filter on them. So we already got our filter on, and we already chose what kind of filtering we want. I like to save as many high frequencies as possible throughout the length of my song, so naturally I'm going to cut down as much as I can. And then I'm going to shorten up the sustain and decay. So then we'll get something like that, and what makes this pad all the more better is a nice reverb plugin. I'm going to use Valhalla, but you can use any reverb plugin that's built into Logic. And you get something like that. So the reverb that I'm using is 4 seconds long with a mix of 31%, and so any reverb plugin will be able to pull something like that off. So that's how to make that pad. Next sound we're going to get to is the brass stab. I get most questions regarding how to do brass stabs every time I use brass stabs in a beat. Not to mention, this beat was the beat that I used in yesterday's video, making a beat for Mr. Suicide Sheep. And so that's what our brass sounds like. So how do you do this? How do you get a brass stab that sounds like that? Everybody's using brass stabs. Every genre uses brass stabs. Electronic music uses brass stabs that for some reason sound astronomically large. So I'm going to show you how to get your own brass stabs and get a similar sounding sound. So to get a brass stab, I use splice.com, and then what you want to do is you want to search for brass or brass stabs and navigate through the hundreds of thousands of different samples until you find your favorite one. And then the next part would be how to make it sound big. And so what I do is I grab my brass stab from Splice, the Splice helper, and then slide it into here. So my brass stab is playable on a MIDI keyboard. Now that's not going to get you a big sound just having it playable in a MIDI keyboard or in a sampler. The best way to get brass to sound big is to couple it with a bass line. So same bass notes that brass stab has to play, and plus you're going to have to EQ it. So I'm going to show you how to EQ it. So by default, our brass stab sounds like this. And there's way too many low-end artifacts that are going to crash into any bass line that we layer it with. And so what we would do to make this brass sound really big is to actually get a big sub bass line like this 808. Make sure that's big and poppin'. And then we're gonna grab that and use the same exact notes as that bass line. So if we look here, our brass stab looks like this, our notes look like that, and then our bass line is actually the same notes, with the exception of these bending notes down there. So when you have a brass stab, first thing you should do is slap on a EQ and just EQ it up above 200 hertz. So you can leave your EQ at 200 hertz and make sure this line is straight up and down so that your brass stab literally has no bass. So then what you could do is you can layer it with the same bass notes with a sub bass, and anything layered with sub bass sounds really, really big. So the bigger you want your brass stab to be, find the best possible sub bass to layer that with. This is a massive 808 bass line, so naturally this brass stab layered on top of that is going to sound big, and that's a lot different than just getting any old brass stab, throwing it down and not layering it. That's not going to sound anywhere near as big as that. Brass tabs are used in hip-hop music, not really pop music, but more electronic music, festival electronic music, and hip-hop music. Alright, so the next sound I'm going to show you how to make is this bendy bass line. So what you want to do, obviously, is grab a bass line and write your notes. Let's get rid of these because we're going to do them separate. So let's go ahead and make the actual sound first. A perfect sub bass is just a sine wave that's pure sub because it has no sharp edges to it, whereas this is a saw wave. It has sharp edges to it, and sharp edges make high frequency sounds. So we don't want anything that makes a high frequency sound. All we want is a pure soft shape that will give us no high-end artifacts and remain a sub bass. So let's turn off that oscillator. So we're just going to use our sub oscillator here, and we're going to use that sine wave that's already selected. This is a step I always take, softening up the attack and release of our ADSR amp envelope. So then next thing I'm going to do is shorten this sustain so that it's kind of just a pluck. I want every note to make it to the next note, so I'm going to adjust my decay until this note makes it to this note. Just like that. So then the next step would be to add a little bit of distortion to it to kind of give us a 200 frequency, 200 hertz range. We need to be a little bit beefy in there since all we're using is a sub bass and we won't have anything to fill out those frequencies. So I'm just going to add a diode. Make sure we get our little EQ here, enhancing the part that we want to be popping, which is the 200 range. And that's going to be a perfect sub bass right there. And so next thing we want to do is we want this to bend. So I want it to bend at the end of each note. That's usually a good place for a sub bass to get really bendy. You might not want to bend the beginning of a sub bass note unless there's like a specific reason you're doing it. But if you just want a casually bending bass line, that could work in a hard song as well as a chill song. You would go one octave down and just take the end of that note's playing time. Now what we need to do is we need to tell Serum that when this note comes in, we want it to bend down to that note. So we're going to go mono, legato. We're going to put in those, click in those, and then we're going to tell it how slowly to bend down. We could go really slow or we could go really fast. And then let's do the same thing here and the same thing here. Just like that. And just like that, you got a nice bendy sub bass line. With a little bit of processing, all 808s and sub basses will sound different. This sub bass has a lot of that 200 hertz range. That's why it appears louder, because technically it is louder. But there you go, guys. That's how to make 3 sounds that every producer should know how to make. I get plenty of questions on how to do those sounds. I hope you guys were able to take value from this tutorial. If you were, give me a fat thumbs up and comment your thoughts in the comment section. You know I say it a lot. You guys have been killing it in the comment section lately, so that really pumps me up and keeps me going. Peace out, guys.